This week, the Huskers travel to Boulder to take on the Colorado Buffaloes, and both these teams are coming off Week 1 victories. For Colorado, a 52-31 victory over in-state rival Colorado State. They were led by Alex Fontenot with 125 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns in that game. For Nebraska, a 35-21 victory over South Alabama. It was not the type of victory that a lot of Husker fans are hoping for. A lot of Husker fans hoped and thought that it would be a dominant victory for the Huskers, but there was some signs of weaknesses in that offense. It wasn't the best performance for Adrian Martinez, but it wasn't his worst performance either. So Adrian Martinez has to have a bounce-back game for the Huskers this week if they want to win. So to open up this predictions video, the Vegas line right now is Nebraska as a 3.5 point favorite. And I could see why it's a spread that low, because coming into this matchup in the offseason, I thought Nebraska would probably be at least maybe a 14-point favorite. But it all makes sense though. It is a road game in Colorado. The altitude may be an issue for the Huskers on game day. And also, Colorado did beat Nebraska last year by a score of 33-28. Steven Montez did throw for 351 yards and 3 touchdowns last year against the Huskers. And who I think is going to be the big X factor in this matchup, Laviska Shenault had 10 catches, 177 yards, and the game-winning touchdown in last year's matchup. And he also did line up in the Wildcat for a touchdown. So these two are going to be a huge problem for the Huskers in this matchup, I think. I think the Huskers are going to be challenged by Laviska Shenault Jr. in this game, and also the altitude, as I just finished addressing. So the defense did step up for the Huskers last week, and the special teams. In fact, the defense and special teams were the difference makers ultimately. Because out of the 5 touchdowns that were scored for the Huskers, the defense was responsible for 2 of them, and the special teams was responsible for 1. So the offense just struggled last week against South Alabama, only generating 14 of the 35 points the Huskers scored. And Adrian Martinez, a couple passes that he had, quite a few, I think at least 3 or 4 of them that he threw, could have and probably should have been intercepted. And he also overthrew Wan'Dale Robinson for a touchdown in the end zone. So Adrian Martinez is definitely going to have to improve this week. And I think Adrian Martinez will have a bounce-back game this Saturday. The way I see this game playing out, I think the altitude becomes an issue for the Huskers at the beginning portion of the game. But the Huskers, they should have won against Colorado last year, but the turnovers were really costly. They fell behind early 14-0. Then the Huskers came back to take the lead, but then Steven Montez threw the game-winning touchdown pass to Laviska Shenault with just over a minute left. So I see this game being played out. I think this possibly could be a shootout. I do have the Huskers winning 38-34. I think if the Huskers play a mistake-free football game, I think the Huskers could win by a little bit more, probably by 2 scores. But I think the Huskers, they're still going through some growing pains in that offense. I think we're going to see some things like that in the first 3 to 4 games this season. But I think the Huskers will do enough on offense to win this game. I think Nebraska wins by a score of 38-34. And very quickly, I did forget to include a matchup I wanted to predict in my weekly predictions video. It was Army and Michigan, and I wanted to predict this one because Army was a competitive team last season. They took Oklahoma to overtime, and Army goes on the road to the Big House to take on the Wolverines. But I think Michigan gets the win over Army because Army, they really struggled against Rice by only winning 14-7. And I think Michigan, being in front of their home crowd for this game, I think Michigan will win, but maybe not as significant as the experts think. I still think Michigan may have some trouble with that triple option, but I think Michigan will win this game against Army. So that's all else I wanted to address. So like, share, and subscribe. I will see you next time.